So your body is still, and if you're lying down, maybe the knees are bent, maybe that feels better for the back, maybe the legs are straight. Wherever you are, just finding stillness. And then gradually beginning to deepen your breath, slowing that breath down. And you're going to count the breath in and count the breath out. So it doesn't really matter the exact number, but the number of the in and the out should be the same. So maybe you can breathe in for a slow count of 4 and out for a count of 4. Maybe even longer. So just finding a nice balanced breath, coherent breath. Once the breath has begun to settle, maybe just scanning through your body. How does your body feel this morning? Taking into account any areas that might be feeling a little sensitive or wanting extra attention. And if you're working with an injury or anything like that, you should not feel the injury in the poses, and you should never feel discomfort in your knees or discomfort around the lower back. That's really important. So it's the only thing that's wrong, pain. Other than that, the poses that we do during our yin practice, it's really focusing on target areas and finding that just right position. So finding your way about halfway towards your edge, and then just maintaining a pose whilst you lean in towards that edge. Really good. So I think you're all lying down, so you can bend your knees and just gently rock your knees side to side, little windscreen wipers pose. Should feel quite nice, so it can be a really small movement if it needs to be. Lovely. And then rolling over to the side and coming up to a seated position. So we'll come up to seated with the soles of the feet together. And in the soles of your feet, on your foot, actually I'm going to show you on my foot. If you go down from the big toe, down, it's not on the pad, it's just under the pad in there, and you can get your thumb in and give it a good massage. That's kidney 1. It's the beginning of your kidney meridian line. It's really good for grounding, really good way to get into your body. And really the kidneys are an amazing place to start for everyone. It's really the foundation of the meridian line system. Really good. So it might feel a little bit tender. You can do one at a time, you can do both. Really good. And if the energy here gets depleted, this is when we feel quite tired, sluggish. And so moving up from here, we're going to come up to kidney 3, which is like giving your batteries a little bit of a boost. So ankle bone, just the top, and it's in like a little, there's usually a little dent when you push your finger in between the ankle and the Achilles. I mean, once you start rubbing with the thumb, you know, it's not an exact point. Don't worry if you think, oh, am I, you know, half a centimetre off. There's lots of really useful points around here. Again, maybe it's tender, that's okay. Don't press so hard if it feels too much. This is called supreme surge. So you're injecting your kidney channel with yang energy. Really good. Lovely. So from here, we're going to begin in butterfly pose. So I have some space between my feet and my hips. If your knees are particularly high, you might want to sit up on some cushions or a book. And if anyone's got a very sensitive lower back, if your lower back doesn't like folding forwards, then you're going to lie down and take it as sleeping butterfly, okay? It's much more gentle on the back. If you're not sure, well then your back's probably fine. So pushing the feet together, sitting up tall, we've got about 3 minutes. So if you already feel a lot, stay here. Otherwise you can come forwards over the legs, remembering you've got 3 minutes. So the idea is we can stay. I'm just going to start the timer. Great. So the target area obviously is the inner thighs. You can adjust where the feet are, bringing them closer in if you really need to feel more, or moving them away a little bit, just to adjust into that just right place. And you can have the eyes open or closed, and you might like to return to that breath that we started with. Breathing in slowly, breathing out slowly. If you feel any discomfort in the knees, you can also put cushions under the thighs, the knees, to really prop them up. That's important. Really good. So you've had a minute already. You might like to notice how this position feels in your body. Maybe it's easy. Maybe it's quite a relaxing part of your body to open. We're going to have our favorite bits. So, you know, it feels really good to stretch the legs here, but not so good around the other side. Maybe it all feels a bit sore and uncomfortable. Really good. Stay with it. So you can always back out of the stretch a little bit if you need to. Staying with breath. Staying in your body. So there really is a need to come into the body, away from the mind, so that when we hold these poses for a long time, we can really listen and hear the body's needs. You've got 1 more minute. Are we being invited in more deeply into the pose, or is the body saying enough? And I think that's the biggest challenge in any yoga, probably in any practice really, it doesn't have to be yoga, is finding the edge, finding that just right position where you can really get into your stuff, flexibility or strengthening without causing injury. Really nice. So you can count your last 3 breaths. Take your time. And whenever you've taken those breaths, slowly you might like to use the hands, pushing yourself all the way up to seated. Take your hands to your knees, close the knees together. You could straighten the legs out, or you can take the legs wide and just rock one knee in and then the other knee in. Just a little counter rotation internally for the thigh. Really good. So we're going to come here into dangling. Some of you have done this with me before. If you prefer to be seated, then hanging upside down, you can sit. You could have cushions under the knees or not and just fold, okay? Otherwise, I like it. I think hanging upside down is really beneficial, so I encourage it a lot. So feet are wide, toes are in. You keep your feet on the floor, don't worry. Elbows on the knees. Here. So this is option 1, supporting elbows on knees and just relaxing that head. And as your hamstrings open and your body warms up, you can then dangle, holding on to the elbows or the forearms. And you might take a little sway of the body, really whatever feels nice for you, stillness or a little movement. Great. The hinge should be at the hips, so you don't want to feel a big rounding at the waist. That's important. Lovely. And so we've moved from the kidney channel to its partner, the bladder that runs along the back of the body, backs of the legs. This is a peaceful line, the guardian of peace. Really good. Depending what you've been doing with your hamstrings this week, it may or may not feel peaceful. So you return to that breath, a balanced breath. And there's so much research out there now, it's amazing, the benefits of doing even just a simple breath like this for 20 minutes will benefit not only your body, but your mind, especially the mind. You know, I've probably said it before, but each of these poses is an opportunity for like a mini meditation. Really good. So you're over halfway through, and I know some of your hamstrings are pretty open. So if you want to make it more intense, then you could interlace your hands behind you and hang your arms over the head. And so it's not just more intense because you're feeling the shoulders, but your arms are pulling you over those legs. You're going to feel more in the hamstrings. Actually, Jason, you were right before. Take the hands behind you. Yeah, like that. Or you hold the elbows. Great. The head is still relaxed. The jaw is soft. Really nice. The breath holds you in the pose. So as we come into this last 30 seconds, just maintaining that position if you can. And it's really important when we do come out that we come out very slowly. I'm going to talk you out of the pose. If you feel funny, then you can just sit down. So release the hands, bend your knees, push the hands into the thighs and really pull in through your core as you round up, roll all the way up to stand, relaxing those shoulders down behind you and eventually lifting the head up. So we're going to come back down to the mat. We're going to come into the front of the thigh. You will want a cushion under the knee. I mean, if you really don't, that's fine. Don't put a cushion. It's just nice to be comfortable to beginning. So this is a little dragon sequence. We did it a couple of weeks ago. So you're leaning forwards and you feel the back thigh. Maybe the quad area, maybe the hip flexor area, maybe everything. And so ideally you have the knee over the ankle. That's where you're probably going to be feeling the most stretch and the knee will be the most supported. So you can have hands on the knee, lifting up. You can, if that's too much or just different, you can have the hands down on the floor or on blocks. And we're just going to begin there. So the hips are melting forwards and the chest is really lifting up. It's a very slight back bend and extension, so you might want to engage the core. And so even though this is sort of a lot of letting go and stretching, for some backs, some hips, they need a little bit of muscular engagement just to protect them as we hold the pose. Really nice. Once you've settled in, holding the pose, finding the breath, and then just noticing what happens to the sensations, the tissues. Are they opening up? Are they beginning to soften? Or are you meeting resistance? So from here, we're going to get more into the hip flexor. So it's a side bend. The same hand as the front leg comes down and you reach over. So some of you might get your hand down on the floor. So yes, Janelle, that's right. So you could take the arm that's on the leg down if you want. Yeah, and the other one up and over. Yeah, is that okay? Lovely. And so the target area is here. So you want to be feeling that lovely stretch through the side, through the front of the hip. Really good. You've got a few more breaths in this variation, and I do apologize if you've been doing legs, you might feel your glute not long, and then lifting up. So your hands are coming down inside the front leg. Sorry, my camera angle's not quite right there. Baby dragon is the knee down. Flying dragon is the knee up. Okay, so you could be there, you could be there, and if they don't feel any different, having the knee down is probably a little more yin, a little more effortless. Having the knee up, you're really needing to push, or we're on the same leg is forwards. Yeah, same leg is forwards. You just put the back knee down, and you want the front knee over the front ankle, hands on the inside of the leg. So Jason, bring your foot forwards a bit and take it a bit wider out to the side. Yeah. And then you could move your back knee further away. Yes, lovely. Yeah, that's it. Really good. Breathing in. If the back knee is lifted, Chris, could you tuck your toes under and really push up through that back thigh? Oh, you can't? Okay, don't worry. Yeah, that's fine. Keep it there then if that's comfy. Really good. Last couple of breaths. And then if your knee has been lifted, you put the knee down and we go back to split dragon, moving the hips back. It should feel quite nice. This is when some books or blocks can help. I mean, cushions, mine are too squishy, but you know, you're getting a bit of height if you need it, or if you don't, then just keep that knee a little bit bent. It's obviously a hamstring stretch. You're feeling the back of the leg. Great. Breathing in. Lovely. Breathing out. Slow, relaxed breath. So we're not holding the breath. That's really important. Giving the body plenty of time to open up. It really takes the muscles at least a minute to start stretching. Lovely. So in your own time, you might use the core a little bit. You're going to draw that leg back. So you could just come to a child's pose. You could lift up like this, downward dog, lovely for the calf muscles, or just sit back on the heels, child's pose, whichever feels nice. Just taking a pause, taking time to reset. Really good. Hopefully you remembered which leg you did. You'll feel it quite quickly, I would think. And then you're going to bring the other leg forward. So we're bringing the other leg forward to dragon. So you can put a cushion under the back knee, leaning forward so the hips are square. And you can have the knee a little in front, but eventually it's going to be above the ankle. You can have hands on hips, hands on knee, hands on the floor. Remembering the target area is just there, front of the thigh. Lovely. So you lean the hips forwards to support the lower back. You might think about lifting the front of the hips up. So just a gentle engagement of the core muscles. Leaning in really just enough. I suppose we probably spent about 3.5 minutes on the other side in the various dragons before we got to the hamstring, the split dragon. Really good. Just taking time to notice your inner space, your breath. Paying attention to how these different postures might make you feel. It's often the mind that gets bored or uncomfortable first, actually, than really the body. So it's quite a lot of mental effort to hold these poses, to sit with these sensations. Really good. So then, just as we did on the other side, you're going to bring the hand that's nearest this front leg down alongside and the other arm over. So I'm just coming into a nice side bend. My hand doesn't reach the floor, but if your hand easily reaches the floor, that's fine. You can put it down. And biomechanics plays a huge part in yoga, in like creating shapes with your body. So it really isn't one size fits all. That's why I like it. The yin yoga, it's a bit more open to variation. Really good. Breathing deeply. As you breathe deeply, you help the hip flexor, the psoas muscle to release. It's attached to your diaphragm. Really good. And then from there, you can place your hands down inside the front foot. Either you keep the knee where it is, or you tuck the back toes and lift that back knee up. Flying dragon. Slightly more active, and in some hips cases, more intense. And that's your choice. I think we all feel different on different days. Sometimes we want it to feel really intense. Sometimes we just need to be gentle with ourselves. It's just finding that balance and paying attention to what we need. You can think of that as a separate muscle, your paying attention muscle in the mind. Really good. You've just got a few more breaths. Lovely. So you can put the knee down if it's not already, and then simply shift your hips back. So you're in split dragon, hamstring stretch, deep hamstring stretch. If it's too much, you could come up if that feels better. I mean, cookbooks, they're quite helpful if you don't have blocks. I realise not helpful now. Really good. Breathing in. Breathing out. Lovely. Just bringing balance. We're looking for space and softness all around. Oh, I think I just froze there. Oh, I was like, oh no, not the Wi-Fi. Really good. Space and softness all around your hips. Really good. And then slowly, gently, you can release. Same option. Sit back in child's pose. Take a downward dog if you prefer. Just lie on the floor. Really, wherever is a comfortable, neutral position. Really good. Lovely. So we're going to move up the body a bit now. So we're going to take toes and then some movements with the arms. So tuck the toes under. If you need to, you could be here. If it's uncomfortable on your knees, you can put something so you don't have to sit back as much, okay? It will be uncomfortable on your toes, but not to the point where, you know, you can't breathe. Lovely. So sitting on the toes, let's see. Yeah, everyone's got their hands off. Fantastic. So interlace the fingers, push the hands all the way up. So we're taking a lovely stretch through the sides of the body, really pushing the palms up to the sky, breathing in, breathing out, and then a little side bend. So you're pushing out through the hands and feeling this lovely lengthening all through the side of the body. Really good. Inhaling to center, and then we take it over to the other side. Really good. Breathing in, push out through the hands, breathing out. Lovely. Probably getting to that point where we think, are we done yet? Interlace the hands behind you. So good for your feet. Reach the hands back or have them on the body. You're pulling the shoulder blades towards each other. Really nice. Just a couple more breaths. Really good. And then you can release. So release the feet. Tap the toes. And I thought my first yin course was bad because we held that pose for like 2 minutes. And I think we sat in it for about 5 minutes one day on my course. And I was just thinking, why are we still here? Anyway, we survived. So we're sitting back on the feet. So again, you can put cushions to support the knees. That's really important that you don't feel the knees. If you do, please just sit with the legs out in front. So eagle pose, you're taking left arm under the right arm and hooking the elbows. Great. And if that, okay, so if that's not possible, you could bring one arm across. If that feels better, could you hold shoulders? Is that okay? Yeah, so that one would be all right. And just notice which arm's on the top. Lovely. If your arms are interlaced, maybe, and yeah, don't worry, if you feel your shoulder, this is just as good because you're stretching the back. Lifting the elbows or drawing the hands forward because it is a really strong arm position. So yeah, always listen, shoulders and knees, important joints, really good. Breathing in, breathing out and sending that lovely balanced breath to the space between your shoulder blades, really breathing into the space behind the heart. And then you can release your arms. So the other arm's coming underneath. We're bringing the right arm underneath. So you could hold the shoulders, interlock the elbows, and eventually maybe you have the hands. Some arms are just too short. It is a thing, and they won't do it. Other times it is just tension in the shoulders. Really good. Breathing in. Breathing out. Really good. If it's really getting too much for the feet or the ankles, then you can again release the legs. Really good. Yeah, don't worry about that other arm, Janelle, if it's sore on the shoulder. Lovely. And then you can release the arms, just circling the shoulders back. So you're going to want your stack of cushions. I'm going to show you on this just because my cushions are a bit unruly. So the important thing is I'm just sort of sat on my side with my feet out behind me. So my knees are bent. Okay, it just looks like this. So the legs are just out to the side. And I either bring my stack of cushions or my bolster into my hip. And then I'm going to turn my body towards the bolster. So if you're already feeling a lot, maybe stay there because we're going to have plenty of time in this pose. Then you begin coming forward. So maybe you stop there. If it feels great, just carry on down. Maybe you're getting really comfy and resting your head on a cushion, or you're resting head on hands. And so you're feeling a lovely stretch through the back and the side of the hip. Right, let me have a look. So yeah, that's lovely. So you turn towards your cushions and fold. So you all look fairly comfy, and I'll assume you're comfy unless you come out. The ultimate yoga, cushion hugging yoga. So coming back to that thought about the kidney channel, the kidney is an organ, because yin yoga is really, it takes its roots, yes, from yoga, but also from traditional Chinese medicine, and they interlace that, the meridian theory with it. And about rest. So finding that balance between the movement and the doing and the simply lying down and taking complete rest. Really good. So there's nothing to do. Nothing to do with the body, and hopefully the mind can remain fairly quiet as well, or at least you'll notice if the thoughts are coming in. You'll notice if you get lost in thought. And you will encourage yourself back. You've had a minute. We've got at least a couple more here. Noticing how it feels to completely let go of the weight of your body down into those cushions. Maybe noticing how it feels as you rest the head on the arms, on that support. And there's another really calming point at our third eye. So as we get that pressure on the forehead, again, slowing down the inner world. And so maybe as your body slows down and your breath slows down, maybe your mind will follow it. So we're just coming into the final few breaths here. Maybe noticing again that hip and side of the back. Maybe you can feel the opening, feel the tissues releasing. So as we think about coming up, we're going to use the hands, the arms, so you can push yourself back up. So coming all the way up and just carefully moving your cushions over to the other side. And you can move your legs across, bringing them into your hip, and slowly, as you did before, just turning towards your support. And then slowly folding over the support. Okay, know that left and right can feel quite different. So maybe it's much easier, maybe you need more height, maybe you need less height. Really good. And again, if you're uncomfortable, you can't find a way to be comfortable here, then just come out of it and give me a wave. This is a really useful posture if you do have generally a tight lower back. You know, if that's one of your sensitive spots, this is a really useful pose, bolster rotation. Then you take the first minute maybe just settling in, really allowing yourself to let go down into the cushions and fine-tuning your awareness, really paying attention to the most subtle sensations from deep within the tissues of the body, the connective tissue. Also noticing any time the mind leads you off on a tangent away from this calm, quiet space. It was quite interesting actually, my yin teacher, he collects my first yin experience. Obviously some people, probably more if you just join up at a yoga studio and just sort of trying out the styles of yoga, it can often be a bit of a shock. I remember mine, I just remember thinking, gosh, why are we still in this pose? Surely we've held it long enough. So yeah, it can be quite funny. My first yin experience. Can let me know what it was like on your first class. Really good. So we've got just over a minute or so to go. That same balanced breath, or maybe it's becoming a little longer now. So, you know, you've been paying attention to your breath for about 40 minutes. We've been opening up the body in these different shapes. So maybe the count is getting longer. Maybe we've really woken up all the tissue that surrounds the lungs, supports the lungs and the respiration, so we can breathe better, we can breathe deeper. And so, just as you did on the other side, really slowly helping yourself back up. You can release the legs out in front. You might like to lie down. You might just like to lean back on the hands. That's fine. You know, just taking a neutral position, shaking the legs out. So, we're going to come into the glutes. Many ways to get into your glutes. If you have a wall, you could do figure 4 against the wall. That's quite nice because then you're not having to pull the legs. So propping this foot on the wall can be a really nice way to do it if you prefer this position for the glutes. Okay, so this is option 1, really good if you have a sensitive knee. I also like teaching deer pose, tilt that down a little bit, which I think we've done a few times, but you have the front leg at a right angle. So you're really sat on the hip, let's say the right hip, with the other knee either quite close in or further out behind, really depending on this hip and your flexibility. If you're really leaning over to the side, then you're going to sit up on a few cushions. You know, one squishy cushion might not make enough difference to come up. okay? And then you're folding over the leg. So this one's quite nice if the knee doesn't like pigeon pose. If you love pigeon pose, or what else is it called, psoas stretch or something like that, then you're welcome to do this. Just if your knee is at all sensitive, it's not the pose, I would say. We're going to be there for a while. So go in so you can feel something in your glute, IT band area. If none of those felt good, then just come out and give me a wave. Really nice. And then settling in, giving those glutes all around the side of the hips some love. Whether you've been doing lots of strength training or whether you've just been sitting and working. And this main junction in the body, the hips. We need to give it support. Really nice. Lovely, your body is still and the mind is quietening down. The breath is long. Maybe now really enjoying these still moments, these quieter moments. As we stretch around the side of this hip, this is gallbladder line. And so whenever we've actually been stretching in the inner thighs with the kidney, we meet the liver. They run quite close to one another. And the gallbladder is the liver's pair. And so the reason these long holds are so beneficial for these channels, these lines that run through us, these are fluid-rich lines running through us, all through the connective tissue of the body. So any tension in the tissue is going to affect the movement of that fluid, energy, the messages that are going through it. So we've got a minute or so to go. Maybe you're folding closer to the ground. Maybe you're coming up further away from the ground. And of course, listen to your body. If you need to release the pose, you can, and just laying down. This is a really strong pose, and whichever variation you've taken, there's just so many different layers of tissues, muscles. You can think of your hips as these really deep pools that collect experiences, emotional memories, physical memories. Sorry, I've got an emotional toddler by the door. So as we come into the last 30 seconds, which is about 5 slow breaths. Allowing yourself these last few breaths for your right hip. And then very slowly coming up. So walk your hands back up towards your body. Roll over to the side to release the leg. If you're lying down, just release the leg. So if you're seated, you might again just rock the knee in. Rock the knee in. You can hold it or you can move. Whatever feels nice. You can shake the legs out. Whatever feels good. And then coming into probably the left side. Obviously, you know which side you did if you did the other one. You'll probably do the same pose. Okay, so either you're taking figure 4, deer pose, lying down, or pigeon. So it's that same side of the hip, side of the thigh area that we want to find. And again, really acknowledge any differences right to left. Allowing yourself plenty of time to settle into that just right position. Supporting the arms or the head as you need to with cushions. There is some element of comfort even in these strong poses. Really good. Body still, mind still quietening down. And you're still noticing the breath, noticing how you can maintain that balanced rhythm. Maybe how it feels in your body now after all this time, looking inwards, all this time, really pouring all of your intention back into yourself to be fully present. So nearly an hour of mini meditations. Because an hour is amazing, it's fantastic, but even 5 minutes changes how you'll feel for the rest of the day. 5 minutes in a pose. I find it easiest to do it in a pose because then you have that little distraction of the sensation, but you could just lie down and breathe for 5 minutes. You could sit and breathe. It's just important that you're still. Just over a minute to go. Listening to your body, adjusting the position if you need to. So now your breath is nice and slow. You'll count those last 5 slow breaths yourself. When you finish those breaths, finding your way out of the pose nice and slowly as you did before, maybe rocking the knees seated. You can also do it lying down on your back, windscreen wipers pose, just as we started. So just gently moving the knees in the hips. And as you lie down, keeping your feet really quite wide apart and resting your knees in together. So you're coming into a constructive rest pose. Knees together, feet wide. So some of you might not have the feet so wide. You do want those knees to rest in. And with the arms could also be alongside your body, cactus arm position, or holding your arms above your head. So that just gets in a lovely opening for your shoulders and your chest. Yeah, but if some shoulders, that won't be appropriate. So we're going to take this as our final pose. Close your eyes, let go of your breath. If it becomes uncomfortable, then just move into our normal relaxation pose, maybe with the legs straight. So you've let go of the breath, you've let go of your body. Created a little clarity for your mind. Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water. Yet for overcoming the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. The soft overcomes the hard. The gentle overcomes the rigid. Everyone knows this is true, but few can put it into practice. You feel the soles of your feet on the earth. You feel the backs of your hips, the spine melting down towards the mat. Feel the shoulders, your arms. You feel the back of your head. You can feel all these little points of body floor connection. And with each moment you lie here, there's a real sinking down, a melting down and further down into the earth. The back of the body heavy, heavy, grounded. Then you notice the air on your skin, maybe on your arms, feet, face. Feel the soft air on your skin. The front of the body is light. You notice the space in between, all that space in your center, space for your breath. The body breathes itself, and the breath moves easily, freely in and out. So you can begin to deepen your breath. Deepen your breath and just bring your arms slowly back alongside your body. Maybe extending the legs out. Take a pause as your body begins to wake up. Making any movements you would like to, maybe giving the knees a hug, one by one or both together. And eventually you'll roll over to one side. Eyes are closed. Then finding your way up to a seated position, sitting up tall. Take a nice deep breath, inhaling the arms up over the head, palms touch. Exhaling, thumbs to crown, to forehead, and down to the mat. You can open your eyes. And thank you all for joining me this morning. I just